Stage is where you really get a chance to really make it organic and have fun.
For over 3 decades, Clifton Powell has been the face of grit, authority, and the quintessential Hollywood tough guy. From his unforgettable, high-energy performance as Pinky in the Friday franchise to his chillingly authentic portrayal of Jeff Brown in Ray, Powell has mastered the art of the unbreakable man. But today, the bravado has vanished, replaced by a vulnerability that has sent shockwaves through the industry. In a moment that no fan ever expected to see, the veteran actor was captured in tears following the delivery of what many are calling his final sentence. As the cameras rolled and the courtroom fell silent, the man who once commanded every scene with iron-fisted confidence appeared visibly shaken, leaving us all to wonder, how did a legendary career reach such a somber crossroads? Today, we're looking past the iconic characters and the silver screen charisma to uncover the truth behind these emotional images. The road to fame and what came after. Clifton Powell is probably best known for his portrayal of Pinky, that outrageous old-school gangster who walked into Next Friday and Friday After Next with a presence that felt impossible to ignore. But that reputation didn't come out of nowhere. It was built over years of steady work, from his chilling performance in Ray as Jeff Brown to his roles in Menace to Society and Dead Presidents, and even his time on television in series like Saints and Sinners and The Family Business. On the surface, it all looks like control, like a career shaped by characters who never bend and never break. But behind that image was a moment that nearly changed everything, an accusation that pulled him into a courtroom and forced him into a fight that had nothing to do with acting and everything to do with his name. And before the recognition, before the roles that made him unforgettable, before the kind of moment that could leave even someone like him visibly shaken, Clifton Powell was just a young boy in Washington, D.C., trying to make something of himself. As a student at St. Anthony Catholic School, Powell watched the live-action Alan J. Lerner musical My Fair Lady, and something about that experience stayed with him. It was enough to spark an interest that would slowly grow into something more serious. While still in D.C., he attended H.D. Woodson Senior High School before transferring to the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, a move that placed him in an environment where talent was not only recognized, but pushed. He earned a place in the Workshops for Careers in the Arts program, designed for students who showed real promise. And by the time he graduated from Emerson College in Boston with a degree in speech and education, the direction of his life had already begun to take form. New York came next, and with it, a reality that tested him in ways no classroom could. For 10 years, he worked through stage plays and commercials, taking whatever opportunities came his way to sharpen his craft. At the same time, he worked as a speech counselor in summer youth programs, balancing passion with survival. The struggle was real, and he admitted that he was not making a great living during that period. Living from gig to gig in New York came with its own pressure, and eventually, that weight pushed him toward a decision. After a decade in the city, he left for Los Angeles, not chasing film at first, but simply looking for stability through television. Something steady, something that could finally give him room to breathe. Once in Los Angeles, things began to shift. Slowly at first, then with more momentum. Supporting roles started to come in. He appeared as Shireen's older brother in House Party and took on the role of Chauncey in Menace to Society, each performance adding to his growing presence. Throughout the 90s, he moved through television with appearances on Martin, The Sinbad Show, and Matlock, building consistency and range. But it was his role as Andrew Thompson in the Fox series Rock that truly changed things. That was the turning point, the moment where everything began to connect. Powell would later credit that role as the one that launched his career, the one that proved he could command attention in a way that stuck. From there, recognition followed, including nominations for both an NAACP Image Award and a Screen Actors Guild Award for his performance in Ray, where he delivered a portrayal that felt raw and deeply grounded. In Next Friday, Powell stepped onto the screen with a kind of energy that took over instantly. Stepping out of that pink limo, scolding his chauffeur, accusing Craig Jones of kidnapping his employees, Day-Day and Roach, and then diving headfirst into chaos with a wild, unpredictable edge. It was loud. It was exaggerated. And it worked perfectly. That introduction became one of the most memorable moments in the entire franchise, a scene that still stands out because it captured everything that made Pinky unforgettable. The film itself pulled in nearly $60 million worldwide on an $11 million budget. And when Friday After Next followed in 2002, Pinky returned just as bold and just as unpredictable. By that point, the character had already cemented his place as one of the standout figures in the franchise. That success did more than boost the films. It reshaped Powell's career. It showed that he could move between intensity and comedy without losing control, and that he could take a character that should have felt over the top and turn it into something iconic. It also played a role in building his financial success and opened the door to future roles that leaned into that same energy. Now, with Last Friday currently in development, there is still a question that hasn't been answered: whether Pinky will return one more time. Powell has neither confirmed nor denied it, and that uncertainty hangs there for a reason, because his career has never been a straight line. It has always been a mix of steady growth and unexpected turns, all leading to a point where the man behind those unforgettable performances is now facing something far more personal, something no role could prepare him for. Yet, to understand the weight of his current reality, one must look back at the moment he first seized control of his own narrative, not with a script, but with a transformation that defied every expectation in the room. How one audition changed everything. The story of how Clifton Powell landed the role of Pinky in Next Friday doesn't start on set. It starts in a room where the role wasn't even meant for him. According to his later interviews, Pinky was originally written with a completely different actor in mind, someone who didn't look or move anything like what audiences would eventually see. But Powell didn't walk into that audition trying to fit into what was already written. He walked in as something else entirely. Something louder, something unpredictable. Coming from a strong theater background, he didn't treat the audition like a reading. He treated it like a performance. He showed up fully in character, dressed in an outfit that immediately stood out, carrying an energy that felt chaotic and off balance in a way that couldn't be ignored. By the time he stepped into the room, he wasn't trying to convince anyone. He had already decided who Pinky was, and that version was so unexpected, so visually and emotionally different, that the people in the room didn't quite know what to make of it at first. There was a moment of hesitation, a pause, and then something shifted, because what Powell brought into that space didn't just challenge the original idea of the character, it replaced it. The role that had been written one way suddenly felt incomplete without what he was doing. Ice Cube and the directors saw it almost immediately. What Powell created wasn't just funny. It fit the world of a Friday in a way the original concept never could. And just like that, the direction of the character changed, not gradually, completely. But what made Pinky stick wasn't just the audition. It was how Powell built him from the inside out. He didn't rely on what was written. He expanded it. The voice came first, that high-pitched, raspy tone that sat in direct contrast to his natural voice. It made Pinky feel unstable, like he could snap or switch directions at any moment. Then came the physicality, the constant movement, the twitching, the way he carried his body like he was always reacting to something no one else could see. Nothing about it was still. Nothing about it felt safe. And that was the point. On set, that energy didn't get dialed back. It grew, because Powell wasn't boxed into a script. He was given space to play, and he used it. A lot of what made Pinky unforgettable didn't come from the page. It came from moments that happened in real time. The scenes with Day-Day carried a kind of tension that felt alive, like anything could happen at any second. That chemistry wasn't forced. It was built through improvisation, through reacting and pushing each other in ways that kept the scene moving. The safe sequence is where that really came together. What was meant to be a straightforward moment turned into something much bigger because Powell leaned into it. The way he delivered his lines, the rhythm, the sudden shifts in tone, all of it felt like it was being created on the spot. And some of it was. The now iconic lines weren't just recited. They were shaped in the moment. Even the reference to go-go style wasn't planned. It came from his own roots in Washington, D.C., a detail he slipped in to give the character something personal, something that grounded all that chaos in something real. Then there are the moments that feel like they're barely holding together. The shut-up sequence in the record store, the way the repetition builds, the way the pitch keeps rising, the way it almost feels like it's going to break. That wasn't fully scripted. That was Powell pushing the energy of the scene, stretching it until it became uncomfortable, and then somehow making it funny. If you watch closely, you can see how close it gets to falling apart. That tension is what makes it work. What's striking is that none of this came from a place of randomness. It came from control, from training. Powell approached Pinky the same way he would approach something far more serious. He built a full character, a physical language, the gestures, the pointed finger, the way he occupied space. All of it was intentional, even when it looked completely unhinged. At the time, it was a risk. He had already built a name, playing intense, grounded roles in films like Menace to Society and Dead Presidents. Stepping into something this exaggerated could have easily worked against him, but instead, it did the opposite. It expanded how people saw him. It proved that the same actor who could carry weight and authority could also lose control on screen in a way that felt just as convincing. And in the end, that's what Pinky became. Not just a character, but a turning point. A moment where everything Powell had learned, from theater to television to film, came together in a way that couldn't be replicated. Because what started as a role meant for someone else became something that only he could bring to life. But even a performance that famous couldn't protect him from the harsh reality of the industry. Behind the scenes, he was facing a different kind of struggle, one where his acting skills didn't matter as much as the way he looked to the people in charge. When talent wasn't enough. Long before the courtroom moment that would later leave him visibly shaken, Clifton Powell had already been fighting battles that never played out on screen. These battles happened in quiet rooms where decisions were made and opportunities could disappear without explanation. When he finally opened up about it, he didn't hold back. He was direct and honest about how his journey was shaped by forces that had nothing to do with how well he could act. He explained that some of the roles he lost came down to one thing: his complexion. In one instance involving a major television project, producers told the director he was too dark and that his presence might scare audiences. Just like that, the role was gone. It wasn't something he had spoken about publicly before, but it was a pattern that kept repeating itself. This same bias followed him into everyday jobs, like a McDonald's commercial, where he was again told he was too dark for what they wanted. It became clear that this wasn't about one missed job, but a system that set limits on how far someone like him could go. Powell saw this as a wider reality in Hollywood. He recalled a situation where an agent was told not to send any black actors who were darker than Denzel Washington. To him, Hollywood wasn't separate from the rest of the world. It simply reflected the same prejudices under brighter lights. But through all of it, he made it clear that he would never allow himself to be disrespected. He faced these issues directly on set, even when it meant losing work or being fired. He chose to walk away rather than stay in places that demanded his silence. This refusal to bend showed up again around 2011 during a conversation that would change his path. When his agent dismissed a project as just another little black movie, Powell didn't hesitate. He pushed back immediately, making it clear that he had a family to provide for and wouldn't turn down work based on someone else's narrow view. The relationship with that agent ended shortly after. Through the rejection and the resistance, Powell kept moving. For him, the decision to keep going was the only thing that truly defined his career. But as he continued to navigate a path defined by his own rules, a new and far more public challenge emerged, one that moved the battle from the closed doors of Hollywood to the open scrutiny of a courtroom. It was a moment that would test his resilience in a way that had nothing to do with the industry's biases, but everything to do with a single night that would cast a long shadow over his life. The allegation that changed everything. In 2012, Clifton Powell found himself at the center of a serious allegation. It was a legal claim that traced back to an encounter in 2011, one that would later be detailed in a lawsuit and change the conversation around his public life. The complaint was filed by a woman using the pseudonym Keontae Myers, who stated that she was 24 years old at the time of the incident. According to the filing, the events began on the night of August 28, 2011, at Harrah's Casino, where she worked as a cocktail waitress. The two were not strangers. The complaint noted that they had known each other for roughly 2 years prior to that evening. What started as a brief interaction at the casino led to an invitation. Powell asked when she would be getting off work and whether she would like to go out afterward. She agreed. After her shift ended around midnight, the two met outside the casino and went for drinks at the W Hotel Bar. From there, the night continued to another location, the International House Hotel on Camp Street, where Powell was staying as a registered guest. According to the complaint, once inside the room, the interaction between them became intimate and initially consensual. But the following morning is where the account shifts. The complaint states that when Powell initiated another encounter, she initially declined, expressing discomfort from the previous night. He assured her things would be different, and she agreed to continue. What followed, according to the filing, was a situation that escalated beyond her consent. The complaint describes a change in tone and behavior, with the encounter becoming forceful despite her resistance. It further alleges that she attempted to pull away and asked him to stop, but that her requests were ignored as the situation continued against her will. The lawsuit sought damages for what were described as acts of assault, battery, and rape, including compensation for medical and legal expenses. Filed in federal court in Louisiana, the case requested $75,000 in damages, with the plaintiff represented by attorney Bruce Betzer. At the time, the allegations introduced a serious and complex chapter into Powell's life, one that stood in stark contrast to the public image he had built over decades. It was no longer about characters or performances. It was about a legal claim that would have to be addressed within the framework of the justice system, where the facts, the timeline, and the competing accounts would ultimately be examined. As the allegations surfaced, Clifton Powell didn't step back. He stepped forward. He denied the claims outright and made it clear that, from his perspective, the situation had been misrepresented from the start. Speaking at the time, he insisted he had never harmed anyone, stressing that there had never been an arrest and that the narrative forming around him didn't reflect what actually happened. What weighed on him just as much was how quickly the story took on a life of its own. It was being spoken about as if it were unfolding in real time, even though it traced back to an earlier moment. And in that gap between when it happened and when it resurfaced, something had shifted. The focus had already moved away from facts and into perception. And once that shift happened, it became harder to control how the story was being told. But as the case moved through the legal process, the outcome brought clarity. The civil case was ultimately dismissed due to a lack of evidence. Legally, that was the point where everything stopped. The accusation did not hold. His name, within that framework, was cleared. Still, the end of the case didn't undo what had already been set in motion. By the time it was dismissed, the impact had already spread into other parts of his life. Opportunities had slowed. Some disappeared entirely. There were roles he never got the chance to take on, not because of ability, but because of the shadow the allegation had cast. And that kind of loss doesn't come with a timeline. It lingers. When he reflected on that period, there was a weight to it. Not just frustration, but the reality of having to move forward while carrying something that had already affected how he was seen. At the same time, there was a sense of resolve in how he spoke about it. The case had been thrown out. That part was clear. And for him, the focus became making sure that outcome wasn't overlooked. Because in the end, it wasn't just about the accusation. It was about what followed, how quickly things changed, how much does it cost, and how, even after being cleared, the work of rebuilding didn't stop the moment the case was dismissed. As he worked to restore his career, Powell began to look inward at the parts of his life that no courtroom could fix. The clarity he found in his legal battles eventually forced him to face a much more difficult truth about his own home. A realization that some of his greatest losses had nothing to do with Hollywood at all, the lesson that came too late. Long after the headlines, the roles, and even the courtroom chapter that tested his name, Clifton Powell found himself confronting something far more personal, something that had nothing to do with scripts or public perception, and everything to do with the life he had built behind the scenes. And when he began speaking about it in his most recent interviews in early 2026, there was no hesitation, no attempt to soften it. He called his failed marriage the biggest mistake of his life. For years, his marriage to Kimberly Powell had stayed largely out of the spotlight. While his career moved in front of cameras, that part of his life remained private, steady on the outside, and anchored by their two children, Maya and Clifton Powell Jr. But beneath that quiet surface, things were already beginning to fracture. And when he finally spoke on it, he didn't shift blame or redirect the story. He took it head on. He admitted that he had not been the husband he should have been. He spoke about infidelity without dressing it up, acknowledging that he cheated and allowed ego, attention, and the pace of the lifestyle around him to take control in ways he didn't fully understand at the time. But for him, it went deeper than that. He explained that despite the image he carried, despite playing men who seemed in control, he lacked the emotional maturity to actually be a partner. He didn't know how to love properly, didn't know how to sustain something real, and by the time he recognized it, the damage had already been done. When the marriage ended, the impact didn't stop at the emotional level. It hit financially, and it hit hard. He revealed that the divorce cost him roughly $10 million, a loss that didn't come at the beginning of his journey, but much later, at a point where stability should have already been secured. Instead, it forced a reset, a return to survival mode. He had to take on work consistently, not out of choice, but out of necessity, rebuilding from a place he never expected to revisit. And yet, in the middle of that rebuilding, something shifted. Now, at 69, he speaks from a different place, not with the same urgency, not with the same pressure, but with a sense of clarity that wasn't there before. He is in a committed relationship, one he keeps largely out of the public eye. And for the first time, he describes himself as learning how to love properly. Not the version shaped by ego or image, but something slower, more intentional, something that required him to unlearn the habits that once defined him. That change hasn't stayed with him alone. It has carried over into how he looks at his son, Clifton Powell Jr., especially as his son navigates a relationship that now sits under its own level of attention. For Powell, it isn't just about support. It's about guidance, about making sure the mistakes he made don't repeat themselves in another generation. He speaks about wanting his son to move differently, to carry himself as a complete gentleman, to understand both the emotional and financial weight that comes with the choices he makes. Because when he looks back, the lessons are clear. The success, the roles, the recognition, none of it protected him from the consequences of what he didn't understand at the time. And now, standing in a different place, the focus isn't on rewriting the past. It's on ensuring the future doesn't follow the same path. Because for every shadow cast by his past, there was a choice to step back into the light. The weight of his lessons didn't break him. Instead, it fueled a relentless drive to rebuild. That drive moved him from the uncertainty of the courtroom back to the one place where he always held control, the screen. The long road back to stability. After everything that threatened to pull him under, Clifton Powell didn't disappear. He adjusted, and then he kept moving. In the years that followed the case, instead of slowing down, he stepped into some of the most consistent work of his career. He became a familiar face on television in a way that felt deliberate, almost like he was rebuilding in real time. Shows like Saints and Sinners, where he held the role of Rex Fisher across multiple seasons, along with appearances in Black Lightning and The Family Business, gave him a steady presence and a different kind of visibility. It wasn't about one breakout moment anymore. It was about staying in motion. That approach is part of what defines how he works. In the industry, he built a reputation as someone who shows up ready, delivers quickly, and doesn't turn work down. A one-take actor, someone who can move between low-budget projects and larger productions without losing consistency. With over 250 credits to his name, that kind of reliability kept him working even during periods where his name carried weight for reasons outside of performance. But behind that steady output, the reality of his finances told a different story. When he spoke about it recently, there was no illusion left. The idea that fame automatically meant wealth didn't match his experience. During the same years he was appearing in projects that made him recognizable, he was still struggling to stay afloat. He talked about getting to sets without a proper car, moving around on a scooter, or driving something small and worn down, while people who recognized him assumed he was living a completely different life. That gap stayed with him for years. Through his 20s and 30s, the focus was on the work itself, on building the craft, but the financial side lagged behind. He admitted that he didn't fully understand how to manage money or create stability until much later, not until his early 50s. And just as that stability began to take shape, it was hit again. The divorce that cost him roughly $10 million forced him back into a position where he had to rebuild, not from the beginning, but from a place that still demanded urgency. Now, in 2026, the tone has shifted again, not in a dramatic way, but in something more controlled. There's a sense that he's no longer chasing the same things. He's still working, still present, but the focus has widened. He's stepped into mentorship, taking what he's learned and carrying it into rooms filled with younger actors, walking them through a path that he knows isn't quick and isn't easy. The message is simple, but it comes from experience. It takes time, and if you're not prepared for that, the industry will expose it. At the same time, he's still creating. He recently wrapped work on the North Star, continuing to add to a career that hasn't slowed down, while also becoming a regular voice in interviews where his perspective has started to reach a wider audience. The way he speaks now carries a different kind of weight. Less performance, more reflection, direct, unfiltered, the kind of honesty that comes from having already lived through the consequences. And that's where he stands now, still working, still building, but no longer moving blindly. Every step feels measured. Every choice feels intentional. Because at this point, it's no longer about proving he can last. He already has. It's about what he chooses to do with everything he's learned along the way. What Clifton Powell movie is your favorite till this very day? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.